Hey everyone, welcome back to the People of Web3 podcast. Thanks for joining Blaine and I. And today we have a very special guest from Bali, Indonesia. Ruanth, how are you?
Hi, GM. How are you, Frank? How are you, Blaine?
Good, GM.
Yeah. So let's start off with a little self intro of who you are, your background in Web2, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So my name's Ruanth. Nice to meet you guys. So in Web2, I'm a sound designer. I work for film, and people often ask what a sound designer is. We're the guys who create sounds that you think you know, but you really don't know. I'll give you a quick example. Like, no one's ever heard a dragon before. And if they have, they certainly haven't replicated the sound for like generations, or a spaceship. So, because technically there's no sound in space. So we're the guys who make those sounds so that when you think of a spaceship or a dragon, you know exactly what it sounds like. So that's my job. Yeah.
That's
And
very
yeah, thanks, man. And I've been doing it for a while, but my Web3 journey is a different story. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
interesting.
kind of want to dive more into the sound design just to
Yeah,
learn a
go
bit
for it.
about it.
I've got a couple of questions
Um,
as well.
I think I just saw a video on Instagram where they explained how they made the sound for the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, and
Yeah.
it was a combination of like four animals, and then they tweaked the sound, of course. Yeah, there
Yeah.
was like the lion roar, there was the baby elephant, like that, and the screaming. When the T-Rex like does the that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
elephant, and then fine-tuned.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And then the breathing was the whale from the whale.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, very cool. What do you say like the coolest sound that you've made?
So my favorite sounds to make are animation sounds. And the reason for it is because in animation you start from zero. When you see any sort of animation, the only thing they have to go with is the dialogue. So when the character speaks. But other than that, the whole world is free for interpretation. So you have certain styles. I mean, sometimes you watch an animation and the car has to sound like a car. But other times, if the animation is more round and friendly, you can make it sound unique in a sense that you can make it sound like a toy, for example. So you add some squishy sounds to it and things like that. So the most interesting animations I've worked on are from graduates of Royal College of Art in the UK. And there's this one director, Inari, who has such a distinctive style. I love her style. And it's a mix of quirky, squishy, and uh, serious. I guess, she talks about very serious subjects in a very quirky and funny way. So it's
Interesting.
very easy to accept. And so I guess I know it's not a direct answer, but her work is I've created some interesting sound for her works. Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Squishy,
Google her, Inari.
squishy and serious. I love that
Yeah,
kind of
squishy and
combination.
serious. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When it comes to I guess Web3, so what does that transition look like for you? So you're a sound designer. How did you first learn about Web3, and what were those kind of ingredients that you're like, oh, this is interesting, let me suss it out?
Yeah, so one of the things of being a sound designer or working in film, to a degree, you need to have a technical aspect. And I've always been sort of techie and nerdy, I was this close to pursuing like a computer science degree, but I just love the art part of it. I couldn't ignore it. So that's why I got into my field. And because I was interested in new technical innovations, I think it was 2015, I first heard about Bitcoin. And I said, "Oh, what is this?" And everyone was telling me it's a scam, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at the technology, you start imagining how it can be useful. And so in 2015, I got my first Bitcoin. And then in 2017, I kind of forgot about it. And then in 2017, I got my first NFT. And what got me there was because I had subscribed to a newsletter or something. And then I saw CryptoKitties. So, ooh, what's this game built on top of this technology? And so I saw it, and it was a new coin. It was Ethereum for me, you know, a new blockchain. And so I got into that. And in 2017, I opened my I saw OpenSea, I believe, and then or maybe it was 2018, something, the start of 2018. And OpenSea was very different back then. No one had heard about it. I was like, what is this fake Pirate Bay site, you know, displaying NFTs? And so I got into the whole crypto kitty phase. I saw the Ethereum blockchain freeze, which I didn't think was possible. Literally freeze transaction because it was so backed up in transactions. And then in 2020 and 2021, it sort of took off again. So I already had my foot in the door. I had wallets, I had crypto assets, and then I saw it skyrocket. I was like, ooh, I gotta continue this path. And so in 2021, I have an uncle who works in the fine arts industry here in Indonesia, and not just in Indonesia, but worldwide, but especially in Indonesia. He's an art fair director. And he said, hey, do you want to display NFTs in 3 galleries offline, in real life galleries? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And so that's how I started with a few others, the first NFT community in Indonesia from that event in May 2021. Yeah.
Interesting. So art drew you in, and you got in early. So you're a pretty early adopter, both from the NFT side and also the, I guess, Bitcoin, the OG, and also the first couple of cycles, like the last 2 cycles you've been through those. What did you learn out of those cycles? Because I've had a few friends who kind of, I've been in since 2017, and some of my friends have, some of them got in 2017, some of them came in the other one. But it's always, I kind of try and preface their involvement with, this shit is volatile, kind of check your expectations, because things can just change on a dime. What, as someone who's kind of had a bit of experience in that, how has your perception of crypto changed from that experience and the ups and the downs? Just from your perspective, because from my perspective, I'm kind of like a bit numb to all of that stuff now, because it's just numb's probably the word that I describe my feelings towards it. How do you kind of take it?
That's a good word, actually. Because when people say we're in a bear, you're sort of like, yeah, so what? We've been in a bear this whole time. So but I guess for someone who's just coming in, let me just say that back in 2015 or 2017, you weren't sure of where the blockchain or crypto in general was headed. You weren't sure. You had ideas, but no one was built. There weren't enough people building for you to be sure of it. Now it's for me, it's a for sure thing. The technology is there. We can see not just the potential, but we've already seen use cases. Major brands are adopting it. So it's not an if, it's a when sort of question. And I say this with caution, because I realize some people watching this are going to think, should I get into crypto? Should I get into NFTs? Well, the opportunities are it's there, but it's much less than in 2017 and 2015, I guess. The reason I say that is not because I think crypto won't explode. It's just that there are a lot more people here who have been in it much longer, and they can differentiate what's going to work and what's going to not. They know where to play. And so you're going against much more experienced players, and a lot of them. And so it's still early, don't get me wrong, it's still early. But if you come in with the mentality, I'm gonna get in now to make a lot of bang, a lot of bucks, then that's a really bad mentality to come in. But if you come in with the mentality, I need to learn about this technology because it's going to iterate with future technologies, it's going to integrate with future tech, then yes, that's 100% the right mentality, a builder's mentality, I would say. Yeah.
Builder's mentality.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know you joined in 2015. Um,
Yeah.
Blaine got in 2017, which is already very early. And he stick with it, which is the main thing, because quite a few people got in 2017, but they just kind of went quiet and left once the drop came. Me included, I just got some crypto and then just left it, and then came back it near the end of 2021 is when
Yeah.
Blaine started telling me about NFTs, how we can potentially use it for conservation, and
Yeah.
then obviously after that, I got into the art side, the PFP side for the community, and the culture, and then eventually meeting you in Bali, and then doing some cool events. So let's maybe dive a bit more into Metarupa before we move on. This is the community that you built when your uncle invited you to display some NFTs. My question was when you did the display, were they uh NFTs you guys collected as a community, or was it by some of the local artists in Indonesia? Can you share with us a bit more about how that in-person exhibition went for for the NFTs, and then maybe we can compare that to what's happening nowadays with IRL events.
Yeah. Um, so back then, my uncle wanted artists. He wanted creators from Indonesia. And so we displayed works from Indonesian NFT artists. And there was no Indonesian community. The closest NFT community was based in Singapore called NFT Asia. It's founded by Clara and a few other people. And I knew one person there called Zanavi, who I found her in a Twitter space, and oh no, maybe it was a clubhouse. No, Twitter space wasn't. Yeah, it was a clubhouse, and she was speaking, and I realized she was Indonesian, and so I connected with her. I said, "Hey, do you have more Indonesian artists?" And so I joined the NFT Asia server, Discord server, and she gathered 7 Indonesian artists. So that was all the Indonesian NFT artists back then. There were 7 of us that we knew of. I'm not saying that there weren't more, but it was really hard to find. And so I contacted all 7. We made a group and said, "Hey, do you guys want to show your NFT work in a gallery, in these 3 galleries?" And at first they were hesitant. They were like, "Is this for real? He's scamming us." A few of them, won't mention names, but the most skeptic ones, they ended up having their work sold for, I think it was 1,000x for what they were selling in NFT. I'm not saying that you can't do that in NFT, but when you're in a high-end gallery like that, the collectors that come, they have a certain price margin, and you need to, your minimum needs to be a certain amount. And so I was like, it's gonna sell. You're in this gallery, you look at, they were displaying next to Jeff Koons. It was 30 steps away from Jeff Koons. I'm like, so you're in the latest trend, in NFT trend, and you're next to Jeff Koons. Like, how could you not sell for at least this price? They're like, no, it's not gonna, but it happened. So that's how, at the end of the exhibition, we got together, and that's how Metarupa was founded. We're like, we need to help more creators do this, because back then it was really like, this is the next thing, this is the new revolution. I think a lot of people got in over their heads. They got too excited. They started quitting their day jobs and just went fully into NFT because it was such a bull. But yeah, we were looking to help people get into the NFT ecosystem, the Web3 ecosystem. And we were doing that several ways. We were educating them. We were sending them funds to mint, because you had a minimum amount you had to buy at exchange, and transferring it was too much. So we were helping them, giving them those funds, sometimes recuperating, sometimes not, when they sold their works. But as we developed, I realized that the most important thing for creators is to get exposure. I think that's what a artist dreams of the most, to have their work shown, even more, I would argue, than getting sold, to have their work out there and known to the world. Yeah.
especially in the very beginning. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
How
Not
things
to,
change from the beginning of this community? So you founded this community kind of to now. Are you still getting kind of a lot of interest now, even though we're in a bear? And have people dropped out because it's in a bear? Is it has the NFT scene kind of matched maybe what they were expecting? Like, what's that kind of general sentiment?
yeah, I've definitely had a lot of even from creators I've collected, because I collect NFT as well. They've stopped creating NFT, and I don't see the reason for it. Um, the expectation back then was you get in, you share your work, the community supports you, you get sold, and then you bring in the next person. It was sort of like a pay it forward effect. Now it's, hang in there, keep going. But what's interesting, that's for the creators. What's interesting is that brands are big brands. So Metarupa sort of adopted that, because at first we had galleries who were interested to understand. They were afraid that they were going to get cut out completely from the game. Like, okay, no, creators can monetize by themselves. They have their own platform. Back then, I think foundation started with 15, went down to, I don't know, now it's like 5% or 2.5, I don't know anymore, taking fees from your sale. And for traditional galleries, that was a big problem because they were taking 50%. But now brands, large brands, are getting into it. So Metarupa started consulting with these brands, and we've had household, like, name brands come consult with us. So Bintang started talking to us, which is a subsidiary of Heineken, one of the largest, beer companies in the world, most well known. Harian Kompas, we did 3 of their projects, which is the largest news media agency in Indonesia. They were inspired by Southern China Morning Post and what they were doing with blockchain technology. And people think, oh, how is Web3 going to benefit a company like that? Well, it's immutable. It's uncensorable, it's censor proof. So when you care about journalistic integrity, when you care about, yeah, it's massive. That's a big thing. And people used to cut newspaper articles, clips, they used to call them, and now you can collect them as without taking up space, without it ever having eroded, and no one can take that from you. It's back in the day when you spotted a mistake in the newspaper, and so you cut it out because that's a mistake, or it was controversial, whatever. They couldn't take it back. It's the same thing with blockchain. So yeah, there are many brands who we've spoken to. Some were a fit, some weren't a fit, but they all had interest in NFTs. They all had not in the crypto side of it in terms of like traditional, fungible tokens. They were interested in how NFT could elevate or help their brand. Yeah, so we've adapted to that, and so we do consulting as well. Yeah.
So you're talking about consulting. Where's the value from consulting when it comes to kind of Web3 brands? Can you kind of speak to that?
It became easier for us to consult when large entities like Adidas stepped into. Back then, the hot keyword was metaverse, but now it's Web3, and whatever the hot word is for the moment, it's the same technology. So when Adidas started to get into it, a lot of brands noticed, and then many other brands followed, primarily their competitor Nike and all these other brands got in. So people started Googling these hot search, these hot words, what's hot right now. Right now it's AI, but so I adjusted our metadata accordingly. That meant hashtags on Instagram, it meant SEO on our website, so they found us, or it would be word of mouth. And when as soon as you get a first contact email, it becomes very easy to convince them to at least jump on a free call. So the first thing I would do is say, hey, here's a 30-minute, we'll do our first session for free, 30 minutes. And then I would ask them, what do you know about this world? If they don't know, I had a deck ready. It would take 5 to 10 minutes of their time. But by the end of that deck, they had more questions than I gave answers, because their mind started thinking, how would this benefit my brand? How can I take advantage of this technological innovation, because at the base of it, that's what it is. And that's what I tell them. This is a new innovation. This has never been done since the founding of the internet, since the founding of computers. You could not trust, because of the Byzantine problem, you could not trust other computers. You just couldn't. That's it's a game mechanic, you know? So they were convinced, and they said, how can we use this technology to help our brand? And that's where I started coming with ideas. And it's much more interesting to talk to them about non-fungible tokens as opposed to creating your own money in the blockchain. Because non-fungible tokens, they understand. Brands have assets that are traded with fungible tokens, with fiat, but their assets themselves, they're all NFTs. So any brand you name that's NFTable, you know, they have a product. An NFT is a product. It's just a product that is now verified by the blockchain, an immutable blockchain, depending on what blockchain. So it's very easy to convince them once you understand their lingo and their product and their audience.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think there's a couple of interesting things there. So the one thing I found, you know, that you have that conversation, and in your case, they kind of reached out to you. We had started off with a call, and after a 5-minute, 10-minute pitch deck, you know, they're kind of like convinced. I mean, they're like at least convinced to a point where they want to learn more about Web3. I think that in itself maybe interesting, because I feel like some people still think that there's this massive friction between Web 2 and Web 3, which I think there is in a lot of cases. But for a lot of brands, I think all they need is to understand roughly what this world is, what the potential opportunities are, and then they're like, oh, I get it. And then the thing with the brands and the NFTs versus fungible tokens, that's also kind of cool, because the fungible tokens, there's a lot of you know, obviously people make up this internet money for good reasons, but there's also a lot of kind of scams out there. You know, that's just part of the nature of kind of decentralization. But the NFTs, they all have their merchandise, they have kind of these kind of tickets and these sorts of things. So that is all set up. This is just offers an alternative infrastructure for these things to exist. And then plus opens up these new doors. Like if you think of an NFT as a key that can lock X, Y, and Z, that just opens up so many interesting use cases, which is why they probably are interested in consulting. You know,
yes,
what are these
exactly.
interesting use cases?
Right. And they understand consulting. So when you give a consultant's price, it makes sense to them, because it's the hottest tech. Not many people know about it. Not enough people know about it. They might know of it, but they don't know enough to be able to consult on it, you know. So people who have been in the space for a while, we see the trends. We, to a degree, understand how it's going to benefit their company. We need to find out more about their company, obviously, but it's just connecting the dots. And a lot of the times it's something simple. We don't have to overcomplicate it. And I think that friction that you were talking about, Blaine, it comes from Web3 people sometimes trying to be too exclusive, or thinking that Web2 people are the enemy, but they're not the enemy. You know, large corporations, entities are not the enemy. We're trying to get them to our side. And even if they were the enemy, wouldn't you much rather them join you instead of go against you? I remember a phase. There was a phase where, when a large entity entered Web3 or NFT, everyone was hating on it, because they're like, you're just in it for the money. You're just in it because it's hype. You're just in it for the trend. Yeah, but you're in it too for the trend. I mean, you're you know, it's like, it's just because these guys have.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, exactly. Yeah, we want that Robin Hood story. We want that, you know, from rags to riches story. And so when a large entity comes, instead of seeing them as an enemy, think of how you can benefit from them. You can benefit from that relationship, you know, and it's a mutual benefit. So they get something out of it, you get something out of it.
100%. It can be mutual. It can be. I mean, everyone gets into Web3 for their own personal reasons, but my kind of personal reason is I see this as like a technology that can literally change the world for the better. And if you believe that, and I think a lot of people also believe that, even if it's from like a creative perspective, they believe Web3 can kind of revolutionize the way kind of maybe artists can make a living and these sorts of things. But if you believe that there's all of this value, you kind of have this moral responsibility to share that with everyone and not just keep it exclusive to just a small bunch of people. In my opinion, you need to share the love, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I was jumping on a Clubhouse sesh, I think a few months back, and they were talking about this exact topic, sharing your knowledge in Web3. And the guy was, you know, a Web3 maxi, you could tell. And he was like, yeah, I do everything I do for free. We share our knowledge for free, power to the people. Great. And I said, yeah, I do that too when it's creators, but when it's a multi-million-dollar entity coming to me. Yeah,
I'm
not gonna do it for free. Yeah. You know, I'm not doing it for free. And you can say, you know, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm gonna ask for some money. So when it's a multi-million corporation or entity that's asking me for my advice. Yeah.
And I didn't know people were still using Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's not as hot, but you know, sometimes I jump on the rooms. So yeah. Twitter Space is the thing nowadays.
Yeah. I feel a bit sorry for Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Pretty much this really good idea was just stolen, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Classic. Okay. Let's talk about how you are empowering artists. So you mentioned Metarupa, you're able to onboard artists in Indonesia, educate them about Web3, and even providing some exhibition opportunities. Are you still doing in real life events? After the first exhibition, what else did you guys do?
Yeah, great question. So I realized that after the first exhibition, there was so much interest in Web3 and NFTs that people started talking to us. They asked us where to join. And back then it was all Discord, you know, so join on our Discord. But people joined, they didn't know what to do, they were shy. And we didn't adapt to that nicely. We were forcing them to join our Discord, you know. So people who had never used Discord before, I think we lost a bit of traction. And we didn't take advantage of Instagram and all that, but we kept doing events. So the most important thing that I saw for them was getting exposure. But they had to be educated first, onboarded to the Web3 ecosystem. So other than the events that took place in May 2021 with Art Moments Jakarta, we did the immediate next event that we did was an NFT competition, which happened in I want to say November of 2021, and it was an online NFT competition. It was the first of its kind in Indonesia, maybe Southeast Asia, and the winners, the top 10 finalists, would get displayed at the following exhibition, which was also at the end of November 2021. And so again, we did an exhibition, but this time you got in if you were the top 10 finalists. So we got a few hundred submissions, which was very good at the time. And we displayed the top 10 finalists. And from the top 10 finalists, I think 6 of them were featured, because when you have a art fair event and then the art fair events usually get media partners. They have like 30, 50 media outlets. They blast about the event. And of course, NFT was a hot thing. So they mentioned that. You get exposure. And out of the 6 of the 10 finalists, they ended up on the front page of either OpenSea or Rarible or Object.com on Tezos or another Tezos platform back then. So they ended up on the front page of these platforms. So not only did they get recognition in the traditional art world, but they got recognition in the largest marketplaces in Web3. And we had no idea of the people who were looking at these media posts that, you know, when you saw an NFT artist from Indonesia back then in the space, it was like a sore thumb sticking out in a good way. It was something different because so much of the art was westernized or from that side of the world. You know, it had to do with It was like pop culture and modern and all these. It had a certain style to it. And then as soon as you saw an Indonesian creator, because of course they were brought up in a different environment, their influences are different. You saw a distinctive art style, and it was always a good thing. I've never heard someone in the NFT space saying that Indonesian NFT art is bad. I've always heard positive association to Indonesian NFT creators. Of course, I'm a bit biased here, but yeah, I've always heard positive association to it. So not projects, just creators. So yeah, they got featured, and the queen of NFTs, I guess, here in Indonesia is our co-founder Dila Maharani. I think she got featured 3 times on the front page of OpenSea. And from 26 or 32 artworks, she traded over 300 ETH on OpenSea. And these weren't custom contracts. These were like on OpenSea itself. So it was crazy. It was crazy. It exploded. And then Gozali, the last trend, from Indonesia, who took a selfie every day for 5 years. It was a school project. And then he uploaded that on Polygon. And then it went crazy, a few hundred ETH overnight.
Oh, that's the one that went viral, was it?
Yes, that's the one that went viral. And so that he's also Indonesian, so we started this we started this empowerment, saying you can do it too. And I can mention a few Indonesian artists just from their artworks. I'm not talking about NFT projects, but I know an Indonesian artist who has 600 ETH volume on super rare alone, and no one knows who he is. It's
How much volume?
The wonderful world. 600 ETH just
Ooh,
from his works. And his cheapest work will come out at,
that's crazy.
Yeah, his cheapest work will come out at 2 ETH, and it'll sell out in hours or a few days, even in a bear market. So it's life changing, especially when ETH was at 4K, 4.5K. So I don't know who he is. I just know his pseudonym. It's I know his handle, but I don't know who he is. I know a few people who know who he is, but I'm gonna ask.
Even that is that whole idea around pseudonyms and being anonymous. You can be anonymous while working in the space is such an interesting idea, and it just made me think of what extra value, or like what, I guess potential value of kind of taking on that persona of this is my online alias, but you don't really know who I am. Like if that's real, if your art is quite mysterious as well, like I could imagine a lot of people, like a lot of artists who want to show their work, but they're quite introverted. They would probably rather just not people not know who they are. So
Right,
even from that angle, it's kind of could be appealing for some artists who really just love to create and would rather people not know who they are, but also would want to get a bit of money so that they can keep doing it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just about hiding from the tax man, but it's
No, yeah,
it's sending your message. And when sometimes you have a message that maybe you work for a corporation and your message is completely against that, but I don't know, everyone's situation is different, or you come from a family and you want to vent, but you don't want anyone to know it's you. As artists, we want to express things that oftentimes we're afraid people will judge us by. And so having a pseudonym is beneficial in that sense. Also for censorship reasons, for safety reasons, it's beneficial to the artist. Of course, there are negative things people can do, but I try to
100%.
focus on the positive. Yeah.
Mental health as well. Some people don't want to get famous. Yeah, I agree. As a creator, if I can just create work and let the work speak for itself and not have to put your face in front of anyone else, like that would be amazing.
That's something. And even as a collector, I collect work, but I don't have just one account. I have an account where everyone knows it's me, but I have another account, no one knows it's me. So no one knows it's me. And if I told you it's me, you're like, whoa, that's you? Yeah, but no one knows it's me. And I do that for obvious reasons, so that people don't suck up to me in real life. So people don't go, hey man, thanks for collecting this work that I did I just collect it because I like it, and I don't have to explain to people why I collect it. People are different when they know you collect certain types of work, you know, so or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a crazy
And also
space.
for creators, you can have and same thing. You can have an account where everybody know it's you, you're the creator, and you have another account to create a different style, different type of work that
Yeah,
nobody sees.
definitely. Yeah.
That's very cool. And in Web2, there are artists who are trying to stay anonymous, but if they work with galleries, like of course, some people know who they are.
Yeah.
And if you're doing on the chain and it's just you and the collectors and the artwork on the chain, then you can really, really stay anonymous,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
true definition.
I mean, a Web2, you could still do it. It'll just be a bit hard. I mean, you have like in the
Be
music
much
world, you
harder.
have gorillas. That kind of. I mean, the people probably still know who they are. And
Banksy, I
then
guess, is sort of,
yeah,
you know,
Banksy. Yeah. So it's still possible,
Yeah,
but I guess it opens probably makes it a little bit easier for those that are into that or that way inclined.
I'm going to an event this week. Apparently, they're showcasing Banksy original prints or something.
nice. Start filming it from when you get there because it might shred or, you know, this be destroyed somehow.
Yeah,
It
because
might show up.
yeah, because there's some because was it Banksy who like maybe a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure it was Banksy. He had some sort of like one-off piece or something, and he burnt the physical piece, and there was a digital version of it or something. There's something that he did where, or he or she, I'm not sure, you know who Banksy is,
Yeah.
but they burnt a physical version, and there was a digital replica, and there was some kind of interplay between what happens to the physical pieces and how that translates to an NFT version and how that translates in terms of value. So there's so many like creative things that you can do from an artist perspective when you have like two different mediums to play in, like two different infrastructure mediums to play in.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
That's funny enough. That's one of the questions we get asked the most. How, if I'm a traditional artist, like if I'm a painter or a sculptor, how does NFT benefit me? And, you know, it was a thing back then where people would get rid of the physical or either send the physical to the NFT holder, the first NFT holder, let's say. And they were asking how could this benefit me? So it really depends on what you define is your final version, your final iteration of the art. Because there's a few ways to go about it. I hope you don't mind. We talk about this a bit. One obvious way is you could use it as a certification. So if they get it, they get the physical piece. Another iteration is like you mentioned, Blaine, they could burn the physical and then the digital would be the final work. But there are artists who perhaps, other than burning the original, the physical, they would alter the digital in some way. It's not finished until they alter it digitally. So there's an Indonesian creator called Afrodita Wibowo, and she does knitting, and she does like paper cutting, and she makes these wonderful pieces where her husband then photographed it, and after it's digitized, they either animate it or they add something to it to bring it to its final version. You know, and she was one of the top 10 finalists in the second NFT competition we had. It's an annual thing now. And after that, she got displayed in the last exhibition, which was Art Moments Bali, was at Intercontinental Bali here in Jimbaran. And her work was exhibited there because she was noticed from, you know, previous exhibitions, and people see you, and then you start getting all these other opportunities that people wouldn't discover you otherwise, you know. So she's doing well now. She's exhibiting work. She did her first exhibition here in Bali, so I know there's more to come for her. So yeah, it's interesting how traditional artists can make use of blockchain technology to further their career.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the traditional artists. They might hesitate or question why and how they move their art to the blockchain, to digital. But I think it's just another way for artists and creatives to use the creative side of their brain and coming up with solutions, with new ideas. Because you always have to continue to innovate. Yes, you did your traditional art in that way, but it doesn't mean you can't change your art as well. It should be a journey. You should keep learning new things and trying to incorporate it. I mean, once you learn it, you can decide not to, but um, for the traditional artists who might be listening, I would say spend some time, learn about it first before making the decision for yourself. And we're not here saying, you have to or you'll get eliminated or left behind, but we see an opportunity, we see the potential, and we believe this is the direction in the foreseeable future. And who knows what comes after Web3, might be Web4, Web5. But yeah, definitely try to stay open and then learn about it before we decide. Yes, Blaine.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, maybe the flip perspective. I also don't think that blockchain, if you think of it as a medium that opens up unique opportunities, I also don't think that it necessarily is for all artists as well. I think one challenge that we may face is kind of forcing this evolution of what their art means to them. And I think a lot of the use cases that we're talking about is that maybe kind of provides alternative revenue streams. There's different creative avenues that you can explore. One thing that which is probably controversial in some kind of artist circles is kind of the idea around utility in art. Because when I was in architecture school, one kind of big separation between art and design was the fact that kind of art has no value, art has no utility. It's kind of art is, people have their own definition of what it means. For me, it's kind of just compressing ideas into a way that people can kind of interact with it and kind of spark some sort of a response. But design is the one where you start, solving a problem. So so I think for some people it maybe they don't need blockchain, and that's totally cool. But I would suss it out and like Frank said, just have a look at it and see for yourself if it works with you, works with your style, works with your beliefs. If it doesn't, then that's kind of cool. I think that that the idea around forcing it could be maybe counter to the artist philosophy for some people, maybe just trying to take the other side as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. We jumped on a call once. It was a space with a prominent collector here in Indonesia, and he had been collecting digital art since 1980 something. And he was arguing that why does the art that I collect have to be digital? And I like debating. I like seeing the other side. And so everyone in that space was probably jumping on the NFT train, and we're like, oh, it's digital scarcity, and they're all good points. But him as a collector, he doesn't care that someone copied his files. He knows that he got it. Even though it's in a USB stick, he keeps it in a hard drive somewhere. He sees it that I got this for this price from this creator, and it's mine. And I don't care if it's not written on the blockchain. I think it would be beneficial to him if it was written on the blockchain, but he just doesn't seem to care. And I said, that's completely fair. That's completely fair. And to each their own, it's fine. And if you want to collect that way, that's completely fair. So that was a really interesting. A lot of people got offended by that, but I don't think we should be. I think we should try to understand what it is that is preventing them from at least understanding more about, what is it? Are we being too exclusive? Are we hyping it too much that when they finally get into it, they get disappointed? You know, are we hyping it too much that way? Are we too focused on the money and transactional aspects of it? So yeah,
Good
it's
questions.
I think in the future, large entities are going to use it by default, and we're going to be in the blockchain whether we know it or not. I think when you upload something, there's going to be a record of it, an uncorruptible record of it. And I think that's something that people are going to care about more, especially since people are starting to care about privacy, and you have all these privacy laws, concerns, lawsuits going against large entities. I think blockchain solves that in a simple way, not easy, but simple way. Yeah.
I like it. We're kind of nearing the end. Do you have a few questions, Frank?
No, I was just gonna say that the tech seems so powerful. There's gonna be a lot of pros and cons, and we're not here saying it's the solution or it's perfect by any means, but it opens up potentials that previous to Web3 there weren't. So I think it's up to people, the builders, as we mentioned in the beginning, how these builders who are in the space early, how they're going to build, what they're going to build, and what kind of culture they'll create. So which is why we want to try to bring in more people with a good mindset to come in and shape the space for the better, focusing on utilizing the tech for positive impact, creating a healthier culture. So thank you, Ruanth, for joining us and sharing.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the invite, Blaine, Frank.